North Korea recently unveiled autonomous weapons, which pundits are referring to as troubling technological advances that also indicate a deepening military alliance between the regime and Russia. We have more on Press Perspective today. Hello, hope your work week is off to a good start. It's Monday, March 31st here in Seoul, and you're watching Press Perspective. North Korea has been making quite a bit of headlines in recent days with news of advances in military technology and potentially a prominent seat at the table for peace talks to end Russian aggression against Ukraine. For more on this, I have Cheon Soram with Radio Free Asia here in the studio. Soram, it's good to have you back.
Glad to be here.
I also have our Professor Lim Eun-jung at Kongju National University joining this session virtually. Professor Lim Eun-jung, it's a pleasure as always to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Soram, we'll start here in the studio. Let's begin with recent media coverage about a number of significant military upgrades by North Korea. Do tell us a bit more about its AI suicide drones and its airborne radar, I believe.
So, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently unveiled two significant military upgrades. First, AI-powered suicide drone and an airborne radar system designed to enhance Pyongyang's air defense system and attack capabilities. These upgrades demonstrate North Korea's push for high-tech warfare, possibly indicating its growing military ties with Russia. So let's start with the AI suicide drone. North Korean state media claim these drones can identify and strike targets without human intervention, making a major shift in its warfare system. There are a lot of questions regarding the drone's practical capabilities, but if deployed effectively, they could target enemy bases, ships, or key infrastructures in South Korea and beyond. Experts believe Pyongyang has studied drone warfare tactics used by Russia in Ukraine and possibly incorporating foreign AI technology. So now on to North Korea's airborne radar system, a first for the country. Airborne radar systems are generally used to detect incoming aircraft, ships, vehicles, and missiles. This is a major upgrade for North Korea since they relied on ground radar system. So these upgrades could significantly improve Pyongyang's ability to coordinate air operations, so posing a new challenge to South Korea, Japan, and the United States. South Korean military officials warned that these upgrades could make North Korea's missile strikes more precise, improve its defense response time shorter, and potentially help detect stealth aircraft. So the concern is that Pyongyang is rapidly modernizing its military, likely with Russian support, while evading international sanctions.
Right. And Professor Im, what more can you tell us about why such military advances by North Korea matter?
Well, let me just, touch upon mainly 2 points. Number one, as Soram explained very well, they are trying to really modernize their military capability. Why does it matter? Until now, again, the Korea, of course, together with the alliance against the United States, or cooperation, security cooperation with other neighboring countries, such as, again, the Japan, we were trying to, again, deter so-called those, missile attack, possible missile attack. So our basically air defense system is much more focusing on those, missile attacks. However, now North Korea, they sent their troops to the war in Ukraine, or war between Russia and Ukraine, and they experienced this very newly developed technology, including, again, the drone-like technology. Drone the thing is, it's very cost efficient. You don't need a very big missile, which is much more expensive than the drone. So I think they truly realize the importance of this kind of very cost efficient, non-conventional military those devices that can really target the kind of niche of our air defense system. Again, our air defense system is robust. However, they are trying to find out again the niche with the drone-like again, the non-conventional devices. And this modernization absolutely is a big kind of, challenging, emerging challenge, not only just for South Korea, and of course for the partner country, such as, again, the US and Japan too. And second point is there are these kind of, likely cooperation, technological cooperation between North and Russia. It really is threatening the existing system. They might, the proliferation, further proliferation can be happening too. And if so, again, those, like-minded countries' air defense system should be reconsidered as well. So again, this kind of I will say, emerging security issue that uses non-conventional, more cost-efficient, high-tech devices in the air defense system. That again is asking, I think, us to rethink about how robust, how systematically well-designed our air defense system is.
Right, I see. Some very important questions then. Soram, Professor Im just spoke about North Korean soldiers being sent to Russia as well. I'd like to expand on that. According to the latest intelligence reports here in South Korea, North Korea, during the first 2 months of this year, sent 3,000 additional troops to Russia in support of its aggression against Ukraine. What's the latest on that front?
So as you mentioned, South Korea reported that North Korea sent about 3,000 soldiers to Russia in January and February. This deployment is part of Pyongyang's continued support for Russia's military efforts in Ukraine. And beyond manpower, North Korea has also supplied Russia with military equipment, deepening their military ties. Experts say this partnership benefits both countries. North Korean troops gain battlefield experience, and while Russia receives additional soldiers and supplies. But this growing cooperation is raising concerns in the West, and particularly over potential technology transfers between Moscow and Pyongyang in areas like missile and drone development, as we mentioned earlier. And one expert that I interviewed recently raised an interesting question. I think that's worth sharing. He said that North Korea's ability to send troops is not unlimited. Although its military is estimated at 1.1 million personnel, only about 600,000 are considered combat ready. The rest are assigned to construction and labor forces. Of course, we are not sure about the exact number, but that's the estimation. One key factor is that Pyongyang must also maintain a strong military presence in their country, like keeping an eye on South Korea. So that makes large-scale North Korean deployments to Russia are unlikely. So experts estimate that North Korea could deploy an additional 50,000 troops to Russia at most. And again, that's just the estimation. So in the short term, these troop contributions may not dramatically change the battlefield in Ukraine, but in the long run, this growing military cooperation between North Korea and Russia could pose a security threat not only to Europe, but also in Asia. So that broader geopolitical risk is what concerns people the most.
Right, and speaking about concerns, yet another perhaps disturbing development, Russia's Vladimir Putin spoke about cooperating with North Korea to end its war in Ukraine. First of all, do share with us some context behind this latest comment, and what are your takeaways from it?
So President Putin has suggested that Ukraine could be placed under temporary administration as part of a peace process that could include North Korea and other Moscow allies. This so-called temporary administration would be an externally managed government, possibly led by the United Nations, to stabilize Ukraine and organize what Putin calls legitimate elections. According to Russian state media, Putin even proposed that not just the UN and the US, but also all BRICS countries and North Korea could be part of this process. I was a little bit quite surprising to hear that because I was not expecting North Korea to be in the peace process. So Putin claims that Ukraine's current government under President Zelensky has lost legitimacy, pointing to Ukraine's decision to postpone its 2024 elections. But Ukraine and its allies see this very, very differently. Zelensky immediately rejected the idea, calling it an attempt to undermine Ukraine's independence. And UN have also dismissed the proposal, arguing that Ukraine's leadership is legitimate and Russia has no authority to dictate its future. So this proposal comes as Ukraine continues to defend against ongoing Russian attacks, particularly targeting its energy infrastructure. US brokered ceasefire remains in place, but both sides have reported violations. So some suggest that Putin's proposal is not about diplomacy. It's a tactical move to increase Russia's influence on Ukraine under the pretense of international oversight.
Right. Staying with Mr. Putin's motives then, Professor, ending the Russian aggression against Ukraine, it's a global priority, and Mr. Putin appears to be giving North Korea a prominent seat at the dialogue table. Why do you believe is he doing so?
I think basically Mr. Putin, President Putin, is trying to maximize its leverage. Because I personally appreciate President Trump's efforts to end the war. Because as Mr. Trump always emphasizes, thousands of people are dying every day. So we definitely want to see really a peace and the end of massive killing. Who's going to just reject that suggestion? However, the thing is the details. Everything is still unclear with the details. And the two sides, again, the Russia and the Ukraine, they really do have a very, very deep perception gap about the security. Russia will say, as long as Ukraine is that much anti-Russia, and as long as Ukraine is collaborating with those so-called Western powers that much, we can't end this special operation. On the other hand, of course, from Ukraine's point of view, as long as there is no security guarantee, it's difficult to just, simply end the war. I mean, without any, the more stable, the security regime or security guarantee. So both sides have its own, the views about the security issue, and it is very difficult to, adjust, compromise for both sides. And having said that, the Mr. Trump, from US's point of view, they want to see the end of the war because they are pretty much obsessed with another competition, which is about technological competition, and main, of course, competitor of this technological competition is China. So they want to focus on that rather than just consuming unnecessary this money or blood in the European field. So again, the three party has its own view, but I feel like the President Putin already recognizes how obsessed or how deeply interested in the President Trump is in the ending the war. So having seen these kind of the perception gaps, I think the President Putin is trying to maximize his own leverage. So that is why he's emphasizing BRICS together with the North Korea, which has been from very beginning, from the first moment, again, the North Korea has been consistently supportive for the Russia. So, Russia, President Putin and Russia, they do, of course, see another like interesting chemistry between the Washington and Pyongyang as well. So that is why I think President Putin is trying to, again, to use the cards he can play with when he is talking about the end of war with the Washington mainly.
Right then, staying with this metaphor, playing with cards, Professor Im, against this backdrop, the Trump administration, or Mr. Trump, President Trump that is, has continued to call Pyongyang a nuclear power. Do you suppose this form of flattery is perhaps intended to bring North Korea back to the negotiating table?
Well, rather than flattery, I think that remark is revealing, reflecting how he sees the reality. Of course, that specific remark can't and doesn't give any legal status to North Korea. Again, it's already out of NPT regime. And they already, again, the left NPT, non-proliferation treaty regime, and then they have been focusing on the nuclear arms weapon development. However, as long as this non-proliferation treaty regime exists, again, there are only 5 officially we call the nuclear armed state, again, which are the same members of the permanent 5 of the UN Security Council, again, the US, UK, France, Russia, and the China. So except these 5, again, nobody can be actually officially nuclear armed state, legally speaking. So again, the President Trump's that remark doesn't give any legal status to North Korea as a nuclear armed state in the regime. However, that remark is, I think, again, the revealing, reflecting how he sees the reality. Reality is reality. So North Korea has nuclear capability, and as long as they do have real capability, this is again the reality. This is the beginning, the point we need to start with. I think his intention is more about that kind of, again, reality. We need to probably recognize, of course, that does not necessarily mean that we should give any legal status to the North Korea. But I think as a pragmatic negotiator, again, the President Trump is trying to emphasize, again, the reality we face today.
Right. And staying with that, Soram, last week, U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, she raised fresh concern, that is, about North Korea's nuclear capabilities. What exactly did she say?
So Director Gabbard has testified that North Korea is likely preparing for another nuclear test. She emphasized that Kim Jong-un remains committed to expanding his nuclear arsenal, viewing it as essential for his regime's survival and as a deterrent against the U.S., South Korea, and Japan. Gabbard said that North Korea is probably prepared to conduct another nuclear test on short notice. And North Korea is continuing to test ICBMs to demonstrate its increasing capabilities to gain leverage in future negotiation with the U.S. So according to the 2025 U.S. intelligence threat assessment, North Korea has been refining its missile technology, including solid fuel ICBMs that could potentially reach the U.S. mainland. The report also warns that Pyongyang may be developing new tactical nuclear weapons for battlefield use. Another growing concern is North Korea's strengthening military and economic cooperation with Russia. Last June, Pyongyang and Moscow signed a mutual defense treaty on military assistance if either nation is attacked. So Gabbard noted that North Korea has been supplying ammunition to Russia, possibly in exchange for advanced military technology. So this could reduce Pyongyang's reliance on China while also helping it bypass international sanctions. Experts say that if North Korea conducts another nuclear test, it could escalate tensions in the region and provoke a stronger response from the U.S. and its allies.
Right. Professor Im, for South Korea, denuclearization of North Korea is a security priority. But given the latest developments, should we perhaps be looking at nuclear arms production freeze instead of a complete nuclear weapons abandonment by North Korea?
Well, many people are, very much worried about the scenario of so-called arm control between just Washington and Pyongyang without us or without, coordinating with us, without coordinating even with Tokyo, like another US's ally. So that kind of bypassing US's East Asian ally, including again us, South Korea and Japan, is the most worrisome scenario we can talk about. However, at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, we do have real reality. Again, the real reality means, again, the North Korea has, of course, it depends on, which institution is calculating or analyzing. But sometimes, some institution will say it's about like a 50, or some other institution will calculate like a 80. But so far, they do have dozens of nuclear warheads, and as long as they do have multiple types of delivery system, definitely this is a concern. So we need to, of course, talk. Dialogue, negotiation is the only way to deal with this, North Korea. However, again, the arms control, as we need to think about the compatibility with the existing global non-proliferation regime. We South Koreans tend to think North Korea nuclear issue is a just Korean Peninsula issue. Actually, it is not. It is really a global issue. Once we accept North Korea as, those de facto nuclear power, even though we don't really give the legal status as a nuclear armed state like, US or Russia. However, still that kind of, acceptance of the reality can trigger further escalation and can undermine existing global non-proliferation regime. This is what global South countries is concerned about too. So we have definitely kind of, dilemma situation. So that is why I always emphasize coordination dialogue, at least between US, Korea, Japan, it should be done first. And hopefully with other, like-minded countries, even in Europe, even in global South, and especially with the China as well. We need to coordinate before we actually really open up the door to the North. We definitely need to have, I think, a dialogue, coordinated dialogue with the other countries first.
Right, for sure then. Soram, you mentioned earlier about how North Korea is reliant on Russia for strategic support. It appears now that it might also be turning to Russia for economic stability as well. Given, in light of that, is a cross-border bridge, I believe, that the two countries are working on. Tell us a bit about that. I believe you covered it.
I did it. So beyond military cooperation, Russia and North Korea are moving forward with a major infrastructure project, a road bridge across Tuman River. If completed, it's going to be the first ever road bridge between two countries, potentially transforming their economic ties. Satellite images from early March, analyzed by SI Analytics, shows signs of initial work on both sides of the river with visible construction materials and fundamental structures. Experts say this suggests early construction on 800-meter bridge is underway. The bridge is part of a broader strategy to strengthen long-term cooperation between Russia and North Korea. So while military ties have deepened, this project signals tangible economic engagement. It can provide a faster trade route and open possibilities for tourism and people-to-people exchange. It is expected to be completed by late 2026. The bridge could challenge China's economic dominance over North Korea and compliance international sanctions on Pyongyang.
All right, and that, of course, is a conversation for another day then. All right, Soram, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. And Professor Lim Eun-jung at Kongju National University, as always, thank you very much for your insights. Right, well, that is all the time we have for Monday's edition of Press Perspective. See you same time tomorrow with more on South Korea's political, economic and diplomatic developments.